Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We are your co-hosts. I'm Brian.
And I'm Robin Joy.
And this is Coach's Corner.
Hey, everyone. Today's episode is going to be packed with insights for those new Amazon sellers that are just feeling overwhelmed. How's that sound?
Sure. I mean, I think we've got some good practical tips in here today.
Yeah.
We try to, bring all of our topics to this podcast based on what we're hearing from coaching clients that we're actually working with.
Right.
Okay. So you will get to know what the answers that we have for them or the suggestions or advice that we have for them, which likely applies to you too at some stage in your business. Right?
Sure.
Like we always say,
well,
one of the
you
reasons
can pick up something from it.
One of the reasons we encourage people to go to like a workshop is because of the sort of not crowd mentality, but the questions that will come up from people that are not you. And you're like, oh yeah,
the crowd dynamic.
Yeah, the crowd dynamic. I had that question too.
Yeah. Or, hey, I didn't think to ask that question, but what is the answer to that? That's a good question.
Yeah. So what are we going to get into today? We're going to talk about why you don't need to master every tool that's out there.
Including Keepa.
Before you dive into your Amazon business.
Yeah, in fact, it's just not necessary.
This is kind of a pet peeve of ours where we tried to simplify it as much as possible because you don't need to be an expert in any of these tools. The tools are there to aid you. They're not the foundation of your business, right?
Right. And so I think we set out to kind of gather what is it that you really need to get started. And that's how we came up with some of the concepts that we've had so that people don't feel like they have to spend a whole lot of time learning before they can get started and learning as they go.
Yep. Then we're going to dive into why we love the Replens model for newer sellers over several other strategies of which we think are all great.
Oh, yeah.
We implement most, if not all of them ourselves.
Just not necessarily a great place to start.
Not in the first year, though, we didn't, right?
Right.
Took us a little while to get going on that stuff.
That's right. We needed a foundation first.
All right. Well, let's dive into this, the idea of Keepa. And the reason that this made the podcasts this week.
Yeah.
Because I got a new coaching client and they were saying, look, I just really want to master Keepa. If we don't learn anything else, I want to master Keepa.
Which is great. I mean, you're a great teacher for doing that.
Well,
but it's not necessary to get started to do that first, right?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I encourage everyone to master Keepa, but don't let it hold you back to getting going in your business, right?
Right. And we see this a lot. New sellers feel like they have to know everything about Keepa, every data point. And as you know, you just did a whole course. Well, I guess we did a little together, but you did the heavy lifting on that one. That Keepa has all kinds of things that you can use eventually, but you don't have to understand them all to get started. Is that right?
Yes, I agree. In fact, there were a few things that I paid attention to when I was first getting started with our Replens business. The most important one was what people were offering these products for their selling price, right? Like I would be able to look at a Keepa chart and say, oh, this historically has been way priced not high enough for me.
Yeah.
Or this historically has been priced at a point where I feel like, oh, this could be something that I can test.
Yeah.
Right.
And at least get all my money back. Right.
Well, I didn't think about it in those terms in the early days. Right.
Well, this is what we've developed.
Yeah. We refined this over time. Right. We're like, one of the stories that I like to hear you tell is when we were deciding, okay, what is it that we really need to know before we make a decision on something?
Yeah. And the reason we were having that conversation was because we had been coaching a lot of clients that were it was just too overwhelming to try to pull the trigger and say, okay, I'm going to test this one. But it was so scary because I don't want to lose all my money. I feel like I'm lighting $20 bills on fire. And so I don't know what I need to know in order to make it kind of in the safe space for me. So we developed that kind of 3-step check when we said, what are the minimum number of things we need to look at? We found 3 data points. And if you could just understand those 3 data points, then you could pull the trigger, get a test going. And if everything didn't work out, you probably get all your money back anyway. So it was great great way to get some sales.
And remind us what those 3 data points are.
They are velocity. We want to make sure it's moving fast enough that we can get in and out. We like to be in and out within 30 to 45 days after it's available. That's how long the test usually is. And for the way that we do it. So velocity is important. The next one is, can we protect our capital? Do we have pretty good evidence that we'll get all our money back, even if it doesn't make us any money? And so we look at historical pricing to see that, to make sure the pricing is staying above or at our break-even point. And then the third thing is, has it shown any evidence in the past that it could give us our minimum ROI requirements? So 3 things.
3 things is really, really all you need to know. And you can, this is the framework that we put together. We like developing the frameworks to make it, pretty simple for people to get started. And then you can customize that as much as you want to going forward. In fact, one of the things that we say is, have evidence of capital protection. In other words, my break-even cost is like the historical sale price doesn't go below my break-even cost. There are people in the community, one person that I saw post relatively recently who said, you know what, I take that, but then I add a minimum percentage onto that. And I say, I need to have a minimum of X percent, not just break even, but break even plus a percentage before I'll even consider it.
Right. And I do see I see people doing it even the other way. I'm willing to lose, I'm willing to risk $1 on this just to get the test. I'm only going to send in a couple. So, $2 is my risk here. So if it stays above $2 below my break-even price, I'll go ahead and test it because the benefits of that test are so great. And most of the time, they don't lose money on it if they've done their homework. Anyway, these are the 3 data points that we go, yeah, go ahead.
The other thing I was going to point out is one of the reasons we came up with the 3 data points is because we said there are literally thousands of data points that you could look at.
And combinations of.
And we see people getting tripped up on these things all the time. Well, but this seller has this many units in stock and this is what their seller profile looks like and all these things that likely don't matter.
They may or may not matter.
Test. Most of the time they don't.
Most of the time they don't.
That's the reason we came up with the three things, is because most of these other things don't matter most of the time.
Well, and what we also found was that what new sellers need is sales.
Yes.
That's what Amazon is looking for. What many of you who are new sellers or have been recently, you remember how it is hard to find ASINs that you're approved to sell. They are pretty tight, especially in Q4. They're pretty tight about what they're automatically opening up for brand new sellers that haven't had any sales. Well, what cures that, Brian? Sales in this case. Sales. Amazon, when you get some sales on your belt, Amazon will start lifting those restrictions. So we have to exhaust what's available to us to start with. And if we don't make much money on that, we're still getting a lot of benefit on that and moving forward. I asked this question in the workshop that we do on the 3-step check and the 4-week test. I asked the question in the beginning, if I told you it was going to be 6 months and you had to do, a lot of testing between now and the end of the 6 months, but you weren't going to lose any money, but you weren't going to make any money. You were going to break even, but then you'd have, other options as far as brands that are available to you to sell, ungated brands. You would have a foundation that you could start making profit on now. Would you do it, even if you didn't make a penny in that first 6 months? And inevitably, they say, of course I would.
Right.
Of course I would. 6 months is nothing for an education. And guess what? You're going to make some money. You may not make any money the first few weeks, but you are definitely going to be making at least some money by the end of that 6 months. And if you've built that foundation strongly, by the time you get to that point, your profits are going to start coming in and looking really nice, and you can do something about it.
Right. Just to maybe rephrase what you were saying, the reason we came up with this is we're looking for reasons to test, reasons to go ahead and pull the trigger, not reasons not to.
Yes, we found people were trying to talk themselves out of every single one, and that's not the idea at all. I mean, I can guarantee you that you won't get a sale if you won't make any profit if you don't send it in.
Plus, there's another really important factor here, which is the data points that you see on a Keepa chart,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they don't really mean anything, or they mean much, much less unless you have, they don't mean that much until you have your own inventory in that listing.
Right.
Right. I couldn't get it out. But this is what I'm trying to say is like, you can sit there and study a Keepa chart all day long,
Sure.
but until you are actually invested in that Keepa chart because you have inventory in there, most of that stuff is meaningless or not as impactful as it will be one day if and when you have inventory in it. Then all these other things, pieces of the puzzle start to make sense.
Yes, and that's exactly right, Brian, and that's very true. These are simply data points. They're not information. They haven't been changed to something that's usable. It's simply a bunch of data points that you can look at and use as something to guide you. But I always say the best time to study the Keepa chart is when you have inventory in there. It's going to make a whole lot more sense as to whether these things affect you or not. And it's going to help you learn a whole lot more about Keepa if you study it while you have inventory in that ASIN.
Right. So don't overwhelm yourself with all the possibilities and the data points that are out there before you're in it. Right. Just have something in place and make up your own framework if that's what it takes.
Sure.
Have something in place that will help you pull the trigger to get some inventory in without risking, keeping your risk low. Right. There's a reason that in our next section that we like this particular model because we can keep our risk low and then get some inventory in there and then learn.
Yes.
Right. This is when you should learn in the process of not while you're sitting on the sidelines.
Right. Exactly. Because you can't. That's the joy of it. You learn so much more when you're actually doing and practicing this.
And that's how you actually build the confidence. It's not studying a Keepa chart that you're never going to send inventory to unless you have built up the experience, and then you can pretty quickly analyze a Keepa chart.
That takes time. That takes a lot
of time and practice, right? And you don't need all that in order to get started in the game.
Yeah. In fact, you need to get started so you can get that practice.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and that's how we build confidence and help people get the nerve to pull the trigger. But why, Brian, are we talking about replens when we're talking about new sellers? Why do we choose that model instead of other models that are available to us?
Well, I think that is a great segue into our next topic, which is why we love the replens model for new sellers. And the replens model is what I think it's been coined by you, by Jim, by a number of people in this community as low risk, low investment with a high chance for success. We call it low, high strategy, right? The low, high strategy applies to replens, and that's why we love it. Because you don't need, and we're going to take a few minutes to compare and contrast this with some of the other strategies that are out there. But we like it because it is just those things. Even when you're testing, you're testing with 3 to 5 units, 2 units, 7 units. You make the call on this, but it's a relatively small amount compared to other models that are out there. And so it keeps your risk low, keeps your investment low, and you've got a high chance for success with a good framework in place.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that in terms of low, high. What lower risk is there than pretty good chance of at least getting all your money back,
right?
Even if you don't make any money, right? That's a pretty low risk, right? Low cost. I only have to send in 2 or 3 to test it. I don't have to send in, hundreds of them. I don't have to spend a lot of money on each little investment to test it. Then I can put more into it after I know whether it's going to do well for me or not. And the chances of success, fast success, are so much better than any other method that I know of, especially when you're getting started building your foundation. If you have this foundation, these other methods become much easier to accomplish as well. Right. So this is what you need in order to make those other strategies much more profitable, much faster.
Attainable. I think a lot of people, it's easy. We talked about getting overwhelmed just looking at Keepa. If I had to design a product and, have a prototype built and then have go meet with the manufacturer to create it and then quality assurance and quality check all this stuff. And then especially if it's getting done overseas, there's a lot more complexity there. and then I have to buy it in such large quantities. I'm talking about private label at this point, right? Then I have to wait for the product to get here. And I've already invested, potentially 5 figures in inventory.
Well, now you have to not only get it here and maybe get it to Amazon for FBA sales, but now you got to advertise it too. You've got to get into a whole nother thing that you have to, that's probably not, but a whole other method of Amazon understanding that you have to know, which is advertising and pay-per-click and things like that. Keyword searches and things like that. You don't have to know any of that in order to sell on existing listings like we do in the Replens model.
Yeah, community listings that are already on the Amazon platform that have multiple offers or have no offers if it happens to be out of stock. But where we didn't have to go create the listing, as long as that listing is created correctly, we've got a pretty simple pre-flight inspection that we can apply for that. Just make sure the brand is correct.
Yes, always be careful of the
pictures
brand.
matches the title, matches the brand, and matches the bullets. We should all be in good shape there. Once that works out, okay, then we can apply some framework to determine, should I test this? And I just want to re-emphasize the point about the speed in which you get your money back with Replens. I realize that there are some challenges when you are a newer seller, when you haven't sold anything and Amazon's keeping a reserve.
Yes.
Okay. The reserve can be a challenge. And this is why we typically will say, I like to advise people to take your capital and spread that out over 6 to 8 weeks and do some even spending every single week.
As opposed to trying to get it. Because it can be hard to spend it all in the first week anyway, because it takes some time to find an ace in a test.
But we also want to get the process going, this cycle going of where we've invested a little bit of money, we send it to Amazon in the form of product, and we sell it. Then Amazon needs to give us our money back at some point, right? Plus our earnings that we get, and then we take that money back plus the earnings, and we go put it into new product, right? Or new Replens, not a new.
Right. It may be the same products, it may be new tests, or both probably.
Right.
Yes.
But that cycle, the capital reserve that Amazon keeps can be frustrating when you're first getting started. But just know that after you get some sales going, this is going to feel like not an issue for you.
Again, sales is what Amazon wants to see in order to loosen some of that up, in order to open some new brands up, in order to.
But let me go back to why I started this conversation, which was the speed.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So the speed at which you get your money back with Replens is so fast relative to any other model that's out there.
Yeah, and the speed of confirmation of the test that should or should not be replenished is relatively fast as well compared to these others. Very, very fast compared to other strategies.
Well, let me just take a minute and finish up maybe this comparison to private label.
Okay.
With private label, you may be inventing something new. You may be making an improvement on something that's already out there. You may be taking something that's already out there and just making that under your brand, that if there's no patent infringement or anything like that. But this development process can take some time. There's research and development. Okay. And then there's the creation of the product. There's the prototype. There's the inspection. There's the getting the product to you and then to Amazon. And then you usually have a large quantity. Okay. We can be talking about, 1,000 units, 5,000 units, a lot of units.
Just for your test, you have to have a whole lot more to test. Maybe not 5,000, but you did need more than the Replens for the test to see if it's going to even work out.
Well, I was assuming we have confirmed that this is going to work for us, right? We haven't. Let's assume we got through the test. We had some sort of prototype that led us to believe, yes, this is going to work for us.
Okay.
If that works for us, then that whole other thing I was talking about still has to take place.
Yes.
And then you have to, like you said, usually get eyeballs on those products. How do you get eyeballs on the products? Usually advertising.
Yeah.
Okay. And all these things are completely doable. Like I'm not out to scare anyone away.
And we do them now.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to start there.
And it takes a long time before you're going to get your money back. So I know everything's relative. If you are in a situation where you've got many tens of thousands of dollars of which you can invest in this and not get your money back for 6 to 12 months, great.
Or possibly not at all. I mean,
Or
the
not
risk
at
is
all.
higher because
Yeah.
we have no history like we have for an existing listing.
Yeah.
We have Keepa that shows us history of whether that's been, working out or not. We don't have that with a new listing that we've just created.
I'm going to say for private label stuff, typically at least 6 months of runway before you really start getting your money back
I would
on
say.
these things versus, what did we say, 30 to 45 days with Replens to get confirmation.
Yeah, it's Replens is definitely a much easier place to start.
Yeah,
than
compared to private label.
Compared to private label.
Yeah.
What about compared to other strategies like wholesale or?
Well, let's just talk about wholesale for a second.
Okay.
You love wholesale because once you land some wholesale accounts, this is going to help propel you forward in your business. But you don't need those wholesale accounts to start out with. In fact, usually if you're hunting wholesale accounts without a whole lot of knowledge about how to sell on Amazon and what kinds of things sell on Amazon, you'll get wholesale accounts that may not work out for you, right? There's maybe not a lot of demand. There's maybe a large buy quantity. There's a lot of things that could work against you.
The vetting of the wholesaler is a big deal too. There are a lot of them out there that call themselves wholesalers, but they're not necessarily even authorized distributors.
So I'm going to say the cycle to identify the product, the wholesaler, and get the product into Amazon is shorter than private label for sure, but your buy quantities are not, right? You may be still buying by the pallet, by the case, by a much larger quantity than you would typically be buying when you're doing Replens.
As opposed to, let's send in 2 or 3 and see it first. Right.
Now you can still do that with the wholesale model. I think
in some cases
you can go to the store, buy the product yourself, right? Sell it on, see if it sells on a listing in which you're looking to invest your wholesale funds into, right? If it sells at a price that you think that's good, that could be your test. And then you can go buy more.
Sure. You sure can. I had something else I was going to say, but I lost it.
Yeah.
The whole point here is there is nothing wrong. There are plenty of other strategies that are taught in the Proven Amazon course that we all, many of us use more and more, but they're not an easy place to start. Replens is an easy place to start. Get your foundation. Give it a few months. It just takes a few months to get that foundation built, and then go outsource that, use the money. This is what I like to do as well. Use the money that I took out of my pocket to do the really lowest risk stuff, because that was my money I took out of my pocket, my savings account, wherever I got that from. That's my money, and I'm risking that. I want the lowest risk possible. Then as I add other strategies, I have money that I made from that money that I've created that I can use to add these other strategies that have just a little bit higher risk status, much higher if you're starting there than they would be if you had a foundation already, I think.
Absolutely. Like, one of the things about the Replens model is it gets you into the game and you get to learn how things work. You get to learn how community listings work. You get to learn how the Amazon machine works. You get to learn how to engage with suppliers. You get to figure all this stuff out before it's a must-have for you because you've got $12,000 of inventory sitting in your garage, right?
Exactly. And this is something that is hard to understand what it is. You'll learn during that building of that foundation. But as we work with people, it's easy for us to see, because we see it all the time, the things that you didn't even think about when you were deciding to, send in items to Amazon to resell. There are plenty of those. Let's get those all out of the way and then do something a little more complex.
Then when you come across a Keepa chart that's maybe a competitor of yours in the future, when you're doing wholesale or private label or whatever, now you know exactly how to analyze that.
Sure.
Right?
It takes practice, though.
Absolutely.
You got to be in there doing it in order to understand these things. You will not understand if you don't study it.
So with the Replens model, one of the things I really like about it is I can have, and I typically do have, several hundred different ASINs that we are selling on versus if I've got a limited amount of capital and I'm starting with say private label, well, all of my capital's in one product.
Right. And if that doesn't work out, Bad news, bears.
The other thing, like even wholesale, is all my capital can be probably just in a couple or maybe a handful of products because of the quantity that I have to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
You have this quote that you brought up when we were chatting a while back about wholesale. You compared wholesale to like eating.
Like eating a taco.
Wholesale is like eating a taco.
Yeah. When you dive into wholesale, you're all the way in, right? You can't do it a little bit.
Yes.
When I'm eating a taco, I feel like I have to
You can't put it down.
Chewing it. I can't put it down, or it's going to be everywhere.
It's already a mess. You're trying to like hold it together and get it like because it gets all over your hands. But if you put it down to wipe your hands, then the whole thing falls apart. And you're like,
right. It's not bad. It's good.
Yes.
A taco tastes good. It's just you can't stop in the middle very well.
Right. And so when you're buying in large quantities, there's no stopping in that middle either. Right.
Right. Exactly.
With Replens, you could stop in the middle. Oh, I sent in 4 units. That didn't work. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. And you find ways to deal with those things that didn't work out during your building your Replens book of business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you get better at, like we were talking about, if you get $10,000 worth of stuff in your garage and it doesn't work out, what do you do? Well, if you have a Replens business, you likely have some ideas about what you possibly could do there that you wouldn't have that much of that broad of an understanding if you didn't do Replens first.
Yeah. So just a quick story about one of my coaching clients.
Yeah.
Off script.
Uh-oh. Here we go.
So I'm working with someone who is in the midst of building their Replens foundation. Mm-hmm. And this is like, she's gone from 0 to having a very, very successful Replens business in a fairly short amount of time in terms of understanding how things work, right? Like she nailed the sourcing.
She's done a lot of practice.
Yeah, she's practiced a lot. She's got the sourcing part down. Never at a loss for what these products are that she can sell. Then she runs into a local someone who's got a brand. And they mentioned to her that they would be, sure would like to get this going on Amazon. And lo and behold, there's this person who's like, she's like a year into her journey of reselling on Amazon, but she knows way more.
Yeah.
I mean, way more than this other person knows. And it doesn't even require a year. I think within 6 months, if you've been consistent, what we always like to say, consistence key and frequency key with your business.
Yeah.
And you've got a good handle on how things work. You will be miles ahead of anyone who's a brand owner who doesn't know their product's not on Amazon yet.
Right.
And so she is speaking their language about how she can help them get their product on Amazon. She can be an exclusive representative for that brand.
She has a coach, so she has support for that.
Yeah, I mean, once you sort of get this success, the fundamentals down, then the rest of this is going to come to you. You don't have to go seeking it out.
No,
it's going to come to you.
The wholesale accounts will come to you. The private label ideas will come to you. They will come to you if you have something going and you start practicing and study those ASINs that you have inventory in and just study your own business.
Study your business.
Understand what's going on in your business and what different levers and dials you have available to you to make adjustments and what those adjustments will do.
So, love private label, love bundles, love wholesale,
absolutely.
Love the proven product partnering, all of that.
POD, KDP.
Yes.
All
buy and hold. Buy and hold
strategies. Absolutely.
Right? These are all great strategies. If you're new, just point you in the direction of Replens first so that you got a good fundamental understanding of how all this works and then scale into these other options.
Yep. That's what we recommend.
All right. So just to sum it up today.
Yeah.
You want to take this?
Don't wait until you feel like you have to be an expert on Keepa. Few data points will get you there. We just want to pull the trigger. As long as we feel comfortable that we're going to get our money back and that it's going to be in a short period of time, why not test it? We need that sale when we're building that foundation.
One of my favorite sayings of yours is, it's just a test.
It's just a test.
It's just a test, right? You're probably going to get your money back.
Yeah.
It's just a test.
Yeah. And if you're still having heartburn after you tell yourself that, Go find another one. How many ASINs are there, Brian?
1.37, I don't know, over 1.3 billion.
Just
right?
on the U.S. platform.
Just on the U.S. platform. You couldn't get through them all in 35 years if you spent every second looking at an ASIN. You just couldn't.
That's right. And I understand that we're not going to be able to sell on all of those, especially when we're new. But there are thousands and thousands and thousands that we know you will be able to sell on when you're new. Maybe you won't make a lot of profit in the beginning, but build that foundation and those profits will come. We see it over and over and over and over. That's why we're so confident that we can say this, because we keep seeing people do it every single day.
In the beginning, it's about successful transactions.
Yes.
And successful in your eyes may be different than successful in Amazon's eyes, but we can actually make it be a win-win situation.
Yep.
Successful for you because you're hedging your bet. You've had every opportunity to get your capital back, if not make a little bit of profit or a lot of profit. And successful in Amazon's eyes because you are creating happy customers.
That's right. That's right. So.
And that's why Replens is our top recommendation when it comes to new sellers, because it is low risk, it's super flexible, and gives you the ability to test without breaking the bank.
I also love that we have the ability to see the history of an existing ASIN and see where that price has been and how volatile or how much velocity it has. I love that. All right. So let's close with a quote. Do you have a quote for us, Brian?
I do. And I think we've used this quote before. Okay. But it applied so closely to this episode that I thought it was worth saying again.
Okay. What is it?
This quote comes to us from Cody Sanchez, and she recently said, "Complexity makes you seem smart. Simplicity makes you money."
Ooh, I'd rather have the money. I mean, everybody wants to look smart, but what makes you look smarter than making money?
That kind of reminds me of something else that came up that I heard recently. Like, people they don't want the money. People don't want to be rich. People want freedom. Yeah. Right. And if simplicity makes you money and money gets you freedom, then simplicity is what you want. Right. Not complexity.
All right. Yeah. I'll buy that. All right.
But we see this a lot. Well, let me break this down for you and show you the 42 different ways that you could evaluate this thing. And it's true, you could do that. Yeah. But man, if you just keep it super simple, you're going to be moving forward a lot faster and experiencing success faster.
Right. I absolutely agree with that. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it.
Yep. Test
small. Make sure your capital is protected and test. Successful transactions. That'll get you your money back sooner from Amazon. That'll get more brands available to you from Amazon. That'll get you higher metrics. It's going to be a good thing to have successful transactions. And guess what? Some of those transactions are going to make you some money.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's about it for today. Hope you found this episode helpful, especially if you were feeling overwhelmed.
Remember that all Amazon businesses are going to be different. We have different things available to us than you have. We have different histories and understandings of life than you have. And it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Everybody's business is going to be a little bit different. And that's why I say there's room for everybody because we all have our own twist on it. I like to say those who find a way find success. Find your way.
Find a way. So if your business isn't quite going the way that you would like it to, you know what cures that?
Test more ASINs.
Test more ASINs. All right, let's go test some more ASINs.
All right.
See you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
All right.
Hey, thanks for listening to today's episode with us. Thanks for hanging out. I've got a guest I want to bring on before we let you go for the day. It's Mr. Jeff Schick. You've heard him on our program many times before. If you've been listening for a while, he always has a great insight based on his legal assistance to Amazon, Walmart, online sellers. What's on your mind today, Jeff?
So I just want to talk about supply chains. And so keeping healthy supply chains, and of course, that means knowing your source. The biggest thing that we're still seeing is sellers continuing to buy from bad sources. That could be bad websites, but especially bad wholesalers. Now, for instance, there's a conference in Vegas every year that a lot of sellers have been coming to me and they say, "Oh, I found this wholesaler at this conference in Vegas. They must be legit. Well, no one's talking about the fact that everyone up on stage speaking has bought a speaking slot. So all, that's the vetting that went in, is that they bought a speaking slot, not that they are content leader experts. And then everyone that's, has a booth, the only vetting that goes in is not whether they're legitimate or have legitimate supply chains, but whether their check clears the bank. And so
if they have wholesale in the name and their check clears the bank, congratulations, you can be a speaker. Yeah.
you've got a spot. You've got a booth spot. You want to give even more money? We'll give you a sponsored, booth spot, a premier sponsor or whatever. So just, the name of the game there, what I'm trying to tell people is, really look out for these wholesalers. When you're looking at a wholesale site, think of it like a used car. You wouldn't just go in and hand a used car dealer, a $10,000 check just because, the car looks pretty. You're going to inspect it and look for flaws. So things you need to look at, the websites, obvious misspellings. If the city or street is spelled wrong, or for instance, the phone number is formatted in a foreign format. US is +1, 3-digit area code, 3-digit, dialing code, and 4 digits at the end. If you all of a sudden see +123-456-789, that's a really good indicator that this is a foreign company that doesn't understand US, standards. And so so you have to watch out for that. Huge red flag is affiliate programs. Real wholesale companies don't have affiliate programs because
That's a great line. Yeah, that's so clarifying. If you're dealing with a wholesaler that has an affiliate program and asking you to recruit other people, recruit other Amazon sellers and we'll pay you. Nope. Run.
They're not real. They're not legitimate.
Mhm.
They're not, so you definitely want to think twice about those. And then you also want to think twice about the person trying to give you their affiliate, link. So that's, just for that too. So I'd really, just encourage people, really do your due diligence. Other big thing, a lot of real wholesalers will take credit cards. If they tell you they take, Cash App, Zelle, wire transfer, those are red flags because, for
Interesting.
instance, Venmo and Zelle and Cash App, no legitimate businesses that I know of are taking those forms of payment right now, unless it's like, a taco stand. So if you have like a wholesale company saying that that's what they take, that's a red flag. And part of the reason they want that sort of payment is because, like when you send a Zelle payment, it says the funds cannot be recovered once
Right.
sent.
Right.
Same thing with a wire transfer. Make sure that you're sending it to a U.S. institution. We had one seller that wired $50,000 to the Bank of China in Shanghai, and they received $50,000 worth of counterfeit goods in return,
Goodness.
even though the wholesaler had a website that claimed that they were located in Texas.
Oh my goodness. Wow. The stuff you see. Okay, so let me bounce something off you here, Jeff. What I've been saying to people is that the best way, I tell them, remember these 3 little words: ask the brand. Does that advice still hold? Like if I'm going to
Absolutely.
sell a product, I can cut out every step you just mentioned. Now that's doing your due diligence. But if I ask the brand's going to tell me, yeah, that's a legitimate wholesaler. Yeah, that's a legitimate retailer, website, distributor. Yeah, we work with those guys. They're part of our channel.
Exactly. No, they should. If it's if you get a hold of, a brand customer service or sales representative, they generally will know where the stuff is being sold. So,
Mhm.
like for instance, the pet shampoo companies I used to deal with did not sell directly to retailers. They only sold through wholesale. But if you talk to one of their field sales representatives, they wouldn't tell you like, no, you can't buy our product. They would say, here's where you buy our product. And they'd give you a list of all the different wholesalers that are authorized wholesalers of that brand. So,
Got you. But if that product ended up on a retail shelf, would that be considered an authorized product for you to
um,
sell it as a reseller?
well, I mean, if you're buying it from a reseller that's listed with the brand, like for instance, some of my shampoos that I sold
Mhm.
had, they did have, like PetSmart listed as an authorized source. So if
Okay.
you bought it at PetSmart, then you're good.
Right.
On the other side of the token, like I was buying from authorized wholesalers, but I was an unauthorized seller. I was the one that Voorhees hates on all the time. And so, if you were to buy the products from me, yeah, Amazon wouldn't be able to validate that supply chain. And then interestingly enough, I used to have sellers that did buy products from my website. And at least I know I was selling them good products. But, if they were to face a Section 3 supply chain audit in 2024, you
Right.
know,
Because this was
Jeff's
10
shampoo
years
company.
ago. 10 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was 2016, 20, back way back when.
Right. Right. But now, yeah, the supply chain is a bigger deal now. You have to make sure that you're buying from authorized sources. And you have such a huge advantage over those who kind of skirt the rules and ignore them. And
But
because Amazon is taking them seriously, because there's a lot of counterfeit goods out there.
yeah, no, I mean, we are seeing it every single, I would say for over the last 3 weeks, we've had at least 1 to 3 Section 3 supply chain audits per day coming into us. So, that's a significant number of Section 3 supply chain suspensions that are coming in where people are getting suspended and Amazon's reactivating them once we help them validate their supply chains, assuming they're good. That being said, there are a couple sellers who, unfortunately, like the guy who wired $50,000 to China, yeah, Amazon said no because they're not willing to accept a Bank of China receipt as proof of authentic goods when the product is coming from a Chinese manufacturer that's not affiliated with the American brand.
Understood. Yeah, don't fall for it. If it sounds too good, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is something that's got a bad news on the other end of it. So yeah, keep doing things the right way. And I appreciate
Yeah.
your advice and insights, Jeff. I mean, this is we've visited this topic before. Amazon's getting increasingly more serious about it. Appreciate all the help you've done on behalf of the good sellers out there, helping us,
Thank you.
stay active and rocking. And for those who want to check out Jeff's services, we love to mention it every week. JeffSchick.com. You can put him on retainer for a few dollars a month. Man, he'll help answer all these questions and help anything you run into Amazon legal and policy. His team is there for you. So really appreciate your partnership, man.
We're here for you. We're happy to help.
We'll do it again next week. All right, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.